let's talk about the Mastermind and an art heist, which happens in daylight.
Art heist does sound like how royalty describe art house, doesn't it? It's an art heist movie.
Yes, that's very. Except that it isn't, of course. But anyway, take it away.
Isn't. So Kelly Reichardt, who's sort of, leading light of US indie cinema, person behind Mix Cut Off, First Cow, which Toby was so brilliant in, and Night Moves. Actually, you mentioned Night Moves. Night Moves is significant in terms of the connection with this movie, because Night Moves is a heist movie and this is a heist movie. So in the case of Night Moves, the setup is a bunch of eco-warriors who are planning to blow up a dam. But what the film is really about is their interpersonal foibles and how everything falls apart in the wake of the heist. And in the case of this film, in the case of The Mastermind, Josh O'Connor, as we heard there, is J.B. Mooney, who's a carpenter, 1970 Massachusetts. He's from a middle-class family. His father is a judge. He gets bailed out by his parents. And he's decided that an easy way to make money would be to knock over this local art museum. It's also implied that he wanted to be an artist, but he failed because he's kind of lazy. And you think it's going to be a movie about, planning the job, how he does it, all the setup, and this car goes there and this car goes there. But it really isn't, because the job basically consists of you go in and just pick up the paintings and I'll just wait outside. What it's actually about is how cack-handed the job is and what happens in the wake of it. So in both cases, the heist is really just a device that allows the filmmaker to explore the foibles of the people attempting to pull off the heist. In the case of Night Moves, it's a group of people. In the case of The Mastermind, it is just the one person. It's this flawed individual who, as you quite rightly say, the title is ironic because he is anything but a mastermind, and whose life, what was the phrase you used, the great unraveling? I think it was a brilliant way of describing.
Yeah, that's kind of what happens in the rest of the film.
But that's it. In a way, rather than The Mastermind, the film could be called The Great Unraveling, because what you then do is you watch his life fall apart because he has been reckless and lazy and entitled in a way that kind of made him think that he could get away with it. And it was interesting that, Josh O'Connor said that he's got this privilege that he doesn't sort of really acknowledge, but he does think that the world kind of owes him a living. And he leaves behind him this trail of disaster, of accomplices who are imprisoned, and abandoned partners and abandoned children and broken homes. And actually, as the drama goes on, his behaviour becomes more and more reprehensible. There's a scene later on in which he does something which is really genuinely unspeakably unpleasant. And so he's not sympathetic. What he is kind of interesting, because the film is like a study of a privileged wastrel who can't see beyond their own problems, whilst ignoring the plight of everyone around him, whilst ignoring the chaos. And actually, I think one of the reasons that Josh O'Connor is great in this role is that Josh O'Connor has got a very good way of portraying, that kind of. You made the comparison with the film that he made with Alicia Rohrwacher in that he's wearing this bedraggled suit. Yeah. He is very good at playing characters. He's very good at playing a lot of different things, but he's very good at playing characters who are sort of careless, who sort of seem to shamble into the situations. And that's what he does here, because his character doesn't say very much, doesn't actually do very much, but he just sort of blunders around, messing everything up. And I think it's kind of interesting that the theme of it is how everyone in the wake of him is just left dealing with the mess that he's made. But there's also this thing going on in the background about the period setting. You quite rightly focused on this in the interview, that it's set in 1970. It's a period piece. The 60s have finished. They've come to a sort of crashing halt. I'm saying 60. I think the 60s finish at Altamont, but that's that. There's wars raging. There is a corrupt president in power. The National Guard are being sent in to shoot at Americans. Now, clearly, that's a period setting, but clearly it's horribly relevant to today. But the bigger point is that there is a really blackly comedic joke toward the end of the film about what happens when his path finally crosses with that of the people who are actually dealing with what's going on. Because toward the end of the movie, he sort of finds himself in the midst of a protest. And it's the first time, it's as if this privileged life that he's been leading while all this other stuff has been going on. As they say, I mean, the draft is happening, but he's not going to get drafted. He's not going to get drafted. If Private Bone Spurs can get off because his dad can write him a letter or his doctor can say, oh yeah, he's got a foot complaint, then there's no way that Josh O'Connor's character, whose father is a judge, is going to get drafted. But when his path actually crosses with the protesters, that's kind of like the first time he's noticed anything else is going on in the world. I mean, I think that all those things are happening in the film, and I think they're embodied in Josh O'Connor's sort of brilliantly feckless, careless, and affectless performance. So I like the film very much, and I do think it connects. I'd say to anyone, if you watch it and you like it, check out Night Moves, because Night Moves did get largely overlooked. It was a film that was kind of, I mean, we did a thing about it in the heist movie episode of Secrets of Cinema, because it's a kind of anti-heist film, where the heist isn't the point. The point is everything after that, and I think that applies here too. And I do think, on the subject of the Maggie Gyllenhaal question, it's a perfectly legitimate question.
Yeah, because I've thought about it, and hearing it again was like twice as painful. But the answer to a question, would you ask that to a man? Well, if say, Paul Thomas Anderson had said, men make films differently to women, and that was the quote, I would absolutely quote that back at the next male director who comes along, because there you go, here's an established filmmaker who says this. What do you think? So anyway, a small release, do you think?
Well, I mean, it's small in as much as it's not Tron Arse, but it is going to be in cinemas, and you will be able to find it.